Welcome back to Midas Letter Live. My guest this segment is Roger Dent. He's the CEO of Quinsam Capital Corp, trading on the CSE under the symbol QCA. Roger, thanks for joining me today.
Glad to be here.
Roger, let's start with an overview. What does Quinsam Capital do?
Well, Quinsam is a publicly traded company, trades on the CSE. We are an investment company that is at this point 100% focused on the cannabis sector, both in Canada and internationally.
Okay, so more as a merchant bank model, more as a fund model, or what is the exact structure?
I would say we're a hybrid model. We try to invest in companies that are not available to the typical investor, either a retail investor or an institutional investor. We do a great deal of pre-public RTO transactions. We do some early stage private company investments. We do some structured loan investments, and we occasionally will just buy a conventional public company. But we very rarely buy just conventional public companies in the open market. That's something we really have not done to any material degree.
Okay, so this differs from the royalty model that Ianthus and Canada Royalty.
Yes, they started out, in the Canada Royalty case, focusing on trying to do structured royalty investments. It certainly looks to us that they're becoming more and more of an operating company as time goes on. We are interested in perhaps doing royalty investments. We haven't actually done any to date. We find that the conventional equity investments and debt investments are easier to negotiate and are easier for our investors to understand the valuation of.
So is there a model that you employ, or is it more like an opportunistic sort of pick and choose and kill what you eat kind of thing?
I would say we have a preferred model. We like to, when we can, make debt investments with conversion features, with warrant features, where we get, on the one hand, the equity upside, but on the other hand, the downside protection of debt. So that's our preferred structure. However, if a company is sufficiently attractive and is not wanting to do that structure, we'll entertain other structures as well.
So then tell me about some of your favorite investments that have really worked out for you so far.
Well, I guess we have a whole variety of investments, some of which we think are very good, but we haven't sold yet. So we're big believers that you don't know if an investment's a success until you've sold it.
Right.
But one of the ones I guess that we just have sold in the last week, which was a great success for us, was a company called DoseCan. This was a private company based in Prince Edward Island that was going through a application procedure for a license, but it was focused on the pharmaceutical side of the business, dosing of cannabis. And it was marching down the path to go public. We were expecting it to be a public company in 2018, but Cannabis Wheaton stepped in and purchased the company last week. So we owned it for about 4 months. We went in in a convertible debenture security with warrants, and we made over 100% return in 4 months.
Oh, that's great. The cannabis market generally is becoming somewhat mature, at least relative to 3-4 years ago, and so there's a lot of sort of impression that it's too late to become a grower and start up with an ACMPR license and say you're going to grow the best and the biggest. What, in your opinion, is the more attractive aspects of the cannabis industry generally right now?
Well, we would agree that at this stage of the game, to set out to make an application for a conventional Canadian cultivation license is not that interesting. There's still, I think, a place for more players, but as an investor, we aren't terribly interested in these companies right now unless we can get involved in a very creative and interesting way from a financial perspective. So as for instance, we are involved in one in Brantford where we took a second mortgage on a piece of real estate in the GTA. We think that in and of itself is an interesting investment, but we got a 30% interest in the license application for free. So that's an unusual way to get involved, and we were happy to do that. But as far as we're concerned, the most interesting aspects of the industry right now are countries outside of Canada, where there are companies and investments that are still at the stage that Canada was at 3 and 4 years ago. And we're also interested in companies with very specific technologies, either pharmaceutical research projects or recreational dosing or delivery mechanisms, branded product strategies, these sorts of things. Mm-hmm. So we're looking for people that have something proprietary, something value added, but the traditional Canadian cultivator, for us right now, not that interesting.
Right. Do you focus strictly on Canadian companies?
No, at this point I would say we are about half and half Canada and international, and most of our new investments at this stage are going either into the United States or into other countries. Mm-hmm. So in the last month to 2 months, we've taken a position in an approved Uruguayan licensee at a very, very nominal value. We got involved in a Jamaican project. We've become involved with several of the major U.S. companies. Two in particular, two of our largest investments to date. One is in a company called Acreage Holdings. Mm-hmm. Acreage has got some press coverage because former Speaker of the House John Boehner is joining their advisory board. Mm-hmm. They have operations in over 20 states in the United States, one of the biggest operators in the United States, perhaps the biggest.
Sure.
So that one we think is going to be a very exciting company when it comes public, which we expect later this year.
Do you think that they're going to wait for the federal legalization of marijuana in the States?
I don't think they're going to wait for it. I mean, it might work out that way. I think at this point they are going through the process of consolidating all of their operating companies into one entity to go public. Mm-hmm. They had initially investments in a large number of companies in almost a sort of a fund type structure, and they've been putting it all into a conventional corporate structure, and that is obviously a process that involves a great deal of work.
You bet.
So we think it'll go public once that process is done. We don't think they'll necessarily wait for legalization. That's still quite unpredictable. Right. We think that is the direction things are going in. Whether it'll be 2018, whether it'll be 2019, 2020, we're not sure. We're also not sure if it's going to happen in one step. I think it's more likely that it will happen in various small steps, okay. All of which will be positive in our view.
Great. All right. Well, that's a great introduction to the company. We're going to follow you with interest. Thanks so much for coming in today.
Appreciate it. Thanks very much.